It's one thing to have a team, but how do you create a high-performing team that delivers every time? And how do you bring out the best in people and hold them accountable even if they don't report to you directly? And do you want your projects to run like a well-oiled machine? And then what do you do if you're the leader and you don't have all the answers, but you want to achieve that goal? Don't worry. You'll get all those answers and more with today's guest expert. We're sitting down with Corporate Vice President Sondra Pedigo, and she's going to reveal all her strategies for leading a high-performing team and how to keep them focused and being able to step up and take that lead. If delivering big results and exceeding goals is your jam, then you definitely want to hear Sondra's insights on how to do exactly that. If you're excited to learn strategies to help you become the high-performing leader you're meant to be, hit the subscribe button and bell icon now so you'll be the first to know when a new adventure is posted every week. Welcome to Adventures in Leadership on Kristie TV. This is where high achievers go for the tools, confidence, and motivation to become a successful leader. Let's do this. Sondra Pedigo is a Vice President of Healthcare Value Performance and Execution for currently the largest health insurance company in her state. And she has a wide span of experience in information technology, individual business, product development, corporate marketing, and national health reform. Wow, can you say multi-talented? She also led the implementation of the ACA marketplace for her company, and then was asked to focus her awesome talents in performance, optimization, and the execution efforts. Sondra's also active in her community, and she serves on the board of directors for the Greening of Detroit and Impact 100 of Macomb. And I've always admired Sondra's tenacity, her keen eye for success, and her approachability. And you'll see all of that as we dive into her leadership insights on how to create a high-performing team. Okay, I am excited to introduce and for you to get to know our guest expert, Sondra Pedigo. Sondra, how are you this morning?
I'm doing really well. I'm really good because you called me an expert. I love that.
That's right. It's a good way to start. Okay, well, Sondra, I am so glad that you're here, and I'm excited that you decided to spend some time with us. I know you're a busy person. Tell the people out here who might not know who you are, just tell us a little bit of, maybe a little personal facts or something behind the scenes with Sondra.
Sure. I'm married. I have two very large dogs. And I think one thing that's given me a lot of good perspective is that I've worked in almost every aspect of the healthcare ecosystem. And so seeing it from all sides and perspectives is really helpful in my career. And then in my personal life, I do practice martial arts, which isn't limited to the physical practice, but also meditation, qigong, which is breathing, and tai chi, which is a moving meditation. And I think that helps keep anxiety at bay from large scale, complex problem solving that we do all day, every day.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. The things that you didn't know. So that's really cool. Might ask you some questions about that later. That's
Sure.
really neat. Everybody here knows that you're vice president. Give us a little insight on how you got there. So I'm sure you didn't just pop out of school and say, boom, vice president, here I am, watch me roar. Tell us a little bit about that journey. How did you get where you are right now?
So when I first was in college, I wanted to be an archaeologist. My parents noticed I was really good at statistics and accounting. So they were able to steer me a little differently due to that unknown talent that was showing up in my grades. And fortunately, I was exposed to a lot of good opportunities to leverage those skills early in my career. But you're right, I didn't wake up and say, oh, I want to be an executive at a healthcare company. I just always worked hard. I always showed up, and I always followed through. If I said I was going to do something, I did it. And if I was given direction on something, I treated it like it was my own business. And I do highly recommend, even if you're not even thinking about a career in the executive ranks, doing that really speaks volumes to other people because they enjoy working with you, they know they can count on you, and it builds trust. And those trustful relationships are what motivates me every day to come to work and want to work with my colleagues. And so that kind of was the path I was on. And it started with more healthcare from the financial side of things. But because I showed up, I ended up getting into the clinical side of things. And then because I showed up, I ended up getting put in a variety of places where subject matter expertise can be learned, but how to approach problem solving and have follow through and be accountable, those were valued no matter what. And people invested in me in the subject matter. So I really was fortunate, and I enjoy that path. And it has taught me to value those same things in people I look for on a team.
Like you said, subject matter expert, industry knowledge that can be taught, but you came to the table with those essential skills. Some people call them soft skills, right? You had those essential skills that you brought to the table, and they said, oh, we need to get her in here. She knows what's going on. She understands what we're doing here. And then you just learn that knowledge, that industry, the details after that. That sounds like what you did.
Yeah. And I have to be honest. The first opportunity I had to really get out of my comfort zone was earlier in my career. I want to say it was in like 1998 or so. And it scared me. It was working in a trauma unit, and I'm not a clinician. And I was hesitant to take the role because it was so different from anything I'd ever done. And it was the best thing I could have done. And I will tell you, if you're open to learning and listening and helping and being there, people will invest in you and teach you. And it was one of the best things I ever did in my life.
Wow. I like that. I really like that, especially for, say, technical people that are out there that feel that they have to have all the answers. They have to know everything before they step up and be a leader. What you just said is when you bring those values to the table, you will be taught. People will invest in you. You just have to show the initiative, the hunger, so to speak, like you said, and to be able to get outside that comfort zone. I think we're kind of learning a little bit, but tell me a little bit more about what makes you so passionate as a leader. Like as a leader and with your teams and everything like that, what's the big thing that fires up Sondra?
I love actually delivering something. People develop strategies and put their plans together on PowerPoint, but it's not real until you deliver it. And you need both pieces of it.
Right.
But to me, my real passion is in that execution and delivery, and being able to take their idea and make it real and have it still be true to the intent of the idea. You know, so you're not taking shortcuts all along the way to deliver a paperclip when they wanted a bicycle.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm passionate about that actual delivery. And I think it's important because you learn every time, because you might be delivering something that you're not the subject matter expert in. And it shows you how that collaboration and how that cross-functional piece is important, because everyone's got something to give, and it's, are they in the right role? And are we all working together, rowing in the same direction? And that excites me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, she's a results person, you know. She's like, okay, we did all this work and we did all this strategizing. Now, poof, here you go.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit, you were talking about the delivery, and you kind of mentioned a team. And when you're not the subject matter expert, you really rely on a team to kind of help you get there, and right? I mean, it's all about the team. So give me a little background on what is your leadership style when it comes to teams and all that. How do you lead them, and how do you get to the delivery, right?
So if you are going to be a delivery leader, in my opinion, it's really important that you show up as well. You have to come to the table, and you have to be willing sometimes to pick up a shovel. Because just being a mouthpiece, asking people to work hard and long is not going to motivate them. And you have to earn trust. You need to be honest. You need to be transparent, and you need to give people the context and the facts, because the more they know and the better they understand the landscape of how they're going to be delivering this, the better able they are to do their jobs. And this is really important because if there is an issue, you need to have an environment where people aren't afraid to raise their hand and say to you, we have a big problem. And how you react as a leader to we have a big problem is really important. Because if you are very upset and you over respond and react poorly to that, people aren't going to want to tell you when there's issues. But when you quickly get on it and work with the team to develop a mitigation plan, and when you're transparent with other people and other leaders that, hey, we have an issue, we're working it, here's what we're doing, you would be surprised at the number of people that come up with suggestions and solutions, or are willing to, bend over backwards to help you get it resolved. What people don't like is when you're not transparent about issues. Having an effort that is red, as we call it, when something is not going well, and marking it red. A lot of people are really hesitant to say it's red because they're worried they're going to get in trouble. And that is not the case at all. That's how you avoid trouble, because you're honest and you're telling people what's going on and you're working through it.
I've talked to so many people who get very intimidated, right? You're in the big room, you've got your 5-10 minutes to say what your part is, and maybe everybody else's part is green, whatever that might be, and yours is red, and you're the only person. So I can understand the hesitation. People are scared. I mean, sometimes they think they'll get fired or whatnot. But what you're saying, when you're on Sondra's team, it's like, let us know, be transparent, say what's going on, and that way we can work through it to get that delivery.
And the other important thing is to let them know it's we. Yeah. Instead of saying John Doe made this mistake, when we're giving an executive report out, I say, I have this issue, we're working it, so that it doesn't come across that we're finger pointing. And that helps people build trust to come forward, not feel like they're going to get in trouble. I had a leader early in my career that used to keep track of my financial mistakes, not because he was trying to be difficult. He wanted to prove to me, you're always going to make mistakes.
Oh.
There's nothing you can't recover from. And the more information you know, the more you're accurate you're going to be able to be. So in the beginning, when you're setting up a budget, or it's wrong, it will be wrong. Just accept it and move forward with the best information you know at the time. I mean, you have to make assumptions, otherwise you won't make progress.
No, that's great. I mean, I'm glad that you brought that up, especially with people that are so worried, especially when it comes to numbers, right? Budget, you said you're from, like an accounting, that was your strength back in there. And so many people are scared of being wrong, right? And like you're just saying, it's going to be wrong and it's okay. And you had a leader that was very understanding and empowering to show you it's okay and let's get through this, right?
Yes.
That's the big takeaway.
It is. And I think raising your hand the minute you notice something that's incorrect, or because that allows the team and the effort to recover. Early and often identification and working through it.
Like, what would you say when you're in that leadership role and you're like in the zone, you feel that you're just having the best day? What do you feel your superpower is?
I feel that knowing the right fit for the roles each person is playing, when I'm assembling a team for a cross-functional effort, I try to make sure I'm selecting people in the role they're going to play to their strengths. And I do feel that I've honed that skill because I've had the good fortune of delivering from the lowest level position all the way up to the highest level position. And it really gives you a good sense of how you need to do it. And I've tried to stay very current on delivery methods. A long time ago, it was the waterfall method, where you do requirements, then you analyze, and then you do the conceptual design. Now it's about Agile. And a lot of people tend to think Agile is a very technical delivery function that only information technology departments use. No, Agile can be a leadership style. And I've taken a lot of business leadership Agile classes, and they're very beneficial because I think one of the things that delivery people inherently know is you've got to break it into small chunks. If you try to boil an ocean, you will get overwhelmed and it won't move.
Right.
But when you break things into manageable chunks that are doable, it's a lot easier, and people get motivated when they see the progress. And I think Agile really embraces that concept and makes for a better end product, and you're able to deal with issues really early, like I was explaining before.
Yeah.
So I just love that.
Yeah. So you love to take teams and put a process behind it, even if it's people that don't maybe directly report to you. They're just
Yes.
working with you, like you
Yep.
said, on these cross-functional teams. So how do you get those teams? You said that your passion was delivery, right? The execution,
Yes.
and here's what we got. How would you say that you motivate these teams, especially with people who maybe don't report to you and you're just kind of you've got tons of people working on this big project. How do you motivate them? How do you bring out that performance?
Well, I think there's two things. One, you have to create that trust. So you have to give them line of sight to everything they need to do their job. And when there is an issue or a mistake, you've got to have their back, because that builds trust. And I will be honest, in the beginning, it's really hard when you have a cross-functional team that there are a couple people that don't know you because they don't have trust yet. But once they see that you're there to help them and to remove barriers and to have the difficult conversations with the necessary people that they need things from, and that you just want them to succeed, it's a game changer. And it's different every time you do it. What might click with the person to really trust you or have that motivation with you can be different for every person. But I guarantee there will always be a scenario where it's an opportunity to earn that, and you do it, and it's magical. And another thing that's important is being at the table. When others are working hard and working late, being there alongside the team to offer help, offer support. If someone needs you to review something, you need to be responsive and you need to be there. And you can't just be a mythical figure in an ivory tower. You need to be accessible. You need to be actively participating, and you need to trust people when they're giving you information. And that really builds that cohesiveness of that team altogether.
Trust, transparency, allowing people to talk about their wins, victories, and all that great stuff, but also maybe the things that aren't going so well. And like you said, for the people who don't know you, just saying, look, we're all on the same team. We're all here for one purpose, and we're all in it together. Right? So how would you, when people are maybe not so motivated, right? And you've got these cross-functional teams and maybe things aren't going like you thought they were, how do you still keep them on a high level of performance? How do you keep that moving toward that delivery?
That's a great question. And I think that's one of the things I learned early on in my career, is that leadership isn't all about the passion and the energy. It's about the difficulties too. And I am not a conflict avoider. When there are issues with performance or issues with trust, I talk about them and I have those crucial conversations. And there comes a time where you can have the crucial conversations, but if you don't see a change, you have to address it. And it may mean swapping out someone onto different roles. They might not be a right fit. You have to make sure that you care enough to have that supportive intervention. It's not always about being the nice guy or being the cheerleader. There's a time when it's going to affect the rest of the team and you have to intervene. And you're not doing the person any favors if they're not performing strong and you don't talk to them about it. And it's not a great conversation, but you can do it in a way that's very productive and non-threatening. However, you do have to hold people accountable. And if they're not performing after those discussions and after the examples and the real behavior, then you need to address it. And I think that's where some leaders fall down. It's uncomfortable to have those conversations. And a lot of people shy away from it because they think they're being mean. but you're not doing the person any service in their own personal growth if you don't address it.
There's a lot of maybe personality types that are no conflict, no, right? They just avoid it at all costs. But if you're going to be a leader, you get the victories and the awesome and the kudos and, you know, whatever it is that you get, and the team is gelling. But you also have to sometimes make those hard decisions, and you have to be direct when it comes to conflict. And like you said, so many leaders shy away from that, and it does nobody any good, right? It doesn't do the team any good, because it's going to bring down their performance. It doesn't do that person any good. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do the company any good. But what you're saying is attack it head on. I mean, not like, you know, like just all out, you know, pouncing on it, but saying, okay, you know, this is the problem and this is what we need to do, and we need to handle it quickly. And it sounds like more of your approach, and it sounds like it's really been working.
It has. There are times when you won't be able to elicit the performance from the person. There's just differences in how the situation is perceived. And at the end of the day, you are the leader and you are accountable to deliver this. So you have to do what's best for the effort and for the enterprise that you're representing. It can be tough. But more often than not, I find that people are receptive to a productive conversation. And a lot of it stems from if you're not clear on what your expectations are up front. And that's where you have to set those, and you have to let people know what you're expecting. And that helps with productive conversations.
Would you say that's what you do when, let's say, you're taking on a new project and you do have those other teams that are cross-functional, right? You've got people that work with you and the people that are over here. Would you say that in the very beginning of a project that you start setting those expectations, you kind of sit everybody down in the room and say, okay, this is what we're going to do and this is what's expected of everyone? Would you say that was more your approach?
Yes, we do that on each effort, complex effort that's delivered. And I do that for the team that I manage daily. I think it's really important. I write supplemental job descriptions for each of the people that report to me that explain, what does success look like? Because there's a lot of times when you can have daily functions, but that doesn't give you the feeling of what exactly is it that we're looking for in a successful leader. And so I think it's important to have those conversations. And I think it's also important to spend the time when you are giving feedback to talk about opportunities for development and talk about the strengths. And a lot of people shy away from opportunities for development for really strong performers. And it's all about how you're framing it. You're saying, you did a great job. I love the work you're doing. If you really want to get to another level, if you focus here and here, you know, you're going to really nail it. And it's hard because you don't want to demotivate, but it's all in how you approach them.
And you had touched on it earlier when we were talking about what you're passionate about, your superpower, and you had said matching certain people's strengths with their task and making sure that what they're strong at, they do on the team, right? Mm-hmm. So can you go a little bit more into that? Because it sounds like when you said your superpower was putting together these high-performing teams, can you go a little bit more into that? And how do you figure that out? Or do you talk to them? Do they do an assessment? How do you look at those strengths and then just kind of dole them out to make the best performing team?
I think part of it comes from observing when you are setting the initial scope and talking through the work, observing how people do approach their own problem solving and how people are evaluating things on certain dimensions, you can get a sense. For example, a subject matter expert really understands the work at the detailed level, but they might not understand how best to attack that work in planning on a large scale effort. How you put each person in their role is going to be important, because if you have someone that really understands the best way to prioritize versus someone who is the subject matter expert, pairing those two together is a successful model. And a lot of times people think, well, if you're the subject matter expert, you should tell me how we're going to plan this work. Now, there are some subject matter experts that have great planning skills, but you have to observe. And you can do that by asking probing questions, by observing the dynamics in the meeting and seeing how people are making suggestions. And the hard part is the further up you get in delivery, the less time you are observing those things. But when you get good people that you trust that are working on your behalf, they observe those things and they understand how to put people into those roles. And that's what's really important.
You know, when most people think of, okay, you're strong at this, you do this, and you keep them separated, right? What you just said, and that I really like, is you take the subject matter expert with the person who's really good at prioritization and put them together. And that sounds like the magic. It's not just they're in some kind of silos and they're just responsible for just these little things. When you put the two together, the expert along with the project manager or the the person whose superpower is prioritization, then you have super magic. I like that you did that. Instead of just putting people in their lane, so to speak, you're putting them together to create something even better.
I like that too. Well said, Kristie.
It was your suggestion. I thought it was really cool. And what would you say the top 2 to 3 traits every new leader must learn quickly? And the reason I say new leader is a lot of the people that are watching today are aspiring leaders. They might not have direct reports yet, or maybe they just got promoted and they're like, oh gosh, okay, now what do I need to do? What would you say the top 2 to 3 traits are that a new leader needs to learn quickly?
I'm going with 3.
Okay, do 3. Let's go overachieve.
So,
let's do it.
Accountability is really important. If you're going to be a new leader, people have to feel comfortable that you're really going to own something and get it done. Part of that accountability is transparency, because you need to let the people know that you're working on behalf of how it's going, what is the progress, what are the issues. Third thing you need is problem solving and issue resolution. People that you're working on behalf of don't want to hear all about the problems. They want to hear about the issues, but they want to understand what is your recommendation to solve them and why. What's your rationale? So it's really important to have good problem solving skills, so that you're not only being transparent, but you're offering a path to success when you do encounter those issues. And I feel like that's translatable regardless of if you're doing delivery or not, even if you're on the strategic side. And so those are important things. And when I talk about transparency and problem solving, I'm also talking about weaving in collaboration in there, because you are never going to do all of this as a self-contained unit once you're a leader. You're working with and through others. And that is an assumed leadership approach that you have to assume as soon as you get to that level, in my opinion.
It's not just you doing all the work. You've got the whole team doing it with you. And a lot of new leaders that get promoted, they think, oh, I have to do everything now.
Right.
Right.
And you think that it's just your area. Is there anyone else that's going to be affected by this? Do I need to get input? Do we need to collaborate? And you've got to evaluate that. And so those things are important. And I know I went way over on qualities.
That's good. Hey, for this show, more is better, because the more insight and perspective that you can share here, you never know who you're going to inspire. So hopefully somebody out there was like, bing, yes, that's the thing. So that's great. Being overachiever here is completely acceptable. What do you feel that the number one biggest lesson you learned now that you wish you would have known before you would have had a direct report? So, we've got Sondra. She's not a leader yet. She doesn't have a team yet. What do you wish you would have known back then that you know right now?
Don't be afraid. I spent a lot of time, even though I got out of my comfort zone, I spent a lot of time in my own head being afraid and anxious about what could happen or failing. And once I realized you're going to fail at certain things when you try new things and you are going to make mistakes, it's refreshing and you're a lot more energized and open to innovation when you do that. And so I let my anxiety spend a lot of time in my head, even though I'm not a conflict avoider. I still thought about it a lot. And looking back now, it took up more time than it should have. And so I think people need to let go of that. And not everyone's going to like you. When you become a leader and you get a team, not everyone on your team is going to like you. And so you have to let that go right away. You're there to do a job. You're there to accomplish success for what the enterprise has set out to do. And you need to do that in the best way possible. And even if you did it perfectly, someone is going to have an issue with it. And you can't let that hold you back.
Well, before we wrap this up, is there any last little tidbit that maybe we didn't cover today, that some little last thing that you want to tell people about, some other last awesome insight nugget that Sondra has that maybe you want to share with aspiring leaders out there?
I think show up, do the work, and be kind. Having a little bit of humility goes a long way, because if you don't know the subject matter, people will be willing to invest in you if you show humility and work collaboratively with them. And that has been really helpful to me in my career.
Yeah, be kind. Yeah, that's sometimes that is forgotten when you get caught up in the mix of budget and deliverables and goals, and we must do these things. And we're all just human. So treating people like people, I mean, that must be one of your secrets to creating those high performance teams that you were talking about earlier.
Yes. And it's hard. It's a hard balance with crucial conversations and being kind. And you've got to keep that empathy in mind.
Tell everyone maybe an interesting fact about Sondra. I mean, we already heard the martial arts thing, and you can kind of go into that. But what's a really cool fact that maybe a lot of people wouldn't know about you?
I do think the Kung Fu is something that's really surprising to people.
Really?
And I'm really fortunate at one of the schools I went to earlier in my life. A student is now part of my team, my broader team. I have since moved on to a different school as I moved out of the area, but I think that the Kung Fu lessons have really enriched my approach for leadership and my behaviors with my team and others. There's a lot of philosophy that's embraced, such as partners, not opponents. I love that approach on things, because you can learn from every person you come in contact with, and they don't have to be your opponent. They can be your partner rooting you on. And I think those things are important life lessons that can apply across the board.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's definitely an interesting fact, because I didn't know about that. And so how long have you been studying it, practicing it?
I started in 2003, and I have continued through different forms with different teachers, but it's something I really enjoy. And I love that it's more than just a physical practice. It is all about trying to calm your mind, be in the moment. And I'll tell you, I don't do those things well, even with all the training, but at least I recognize those qualities when it's happening. And so it's just a good tool, and it makes me a better version of myself. And that's what I like about it. It also has some really scary components to it when you do have to practice in the physical sense with more senior students. And I do believe that when you do things that scare yourself, you are a better performer, because being in a meeting and having to lead the meeting is a lot less scary than having someone trying to kick you.
That's a really good perspective. You're gonna be in this big meeting, and you're gonna talk about this massive project and all these deliverables, and you're a little scared. You're like, well, at least I'm not getting kicked. Yeah, I can do this. Well, it just goes to show that, as busy as you are in corporate life and everything else, you still have time to pursue a hobby that still supports you in your leadership journey, in your career journey. So I think that's really cool, because so many people they get so caught up in just work, 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 but you've chosen something that actually helps you, that, like you said, brings a better version of yourself forward. So that's really cool that you've done that.
And you raise a really good point, Kristie, and I know we're wrapping up here, but I do think it's important for people to not sacrifice too much. When you talk about accountability and responsibility, you still have to have boundaries between balance, because you won't be the best version of yourself if you're not creating those appropriate boundaries and investing in yourself, in the things that matter outside of just the work.
Creating your best version of balance is where it's really at. I mean, that's what I coach all of my clients. Balance doesn't have to be equal parts of everything.
Right.
Balance is what you make of it. And, you know, like you said, practicing Kung Fu is your better version of balance. So that's great. Well, Sondra, I am so glad that you made it here. I hope that everybody out there got a lot of insights. I know I got some pretty cool stuff, especially the pairing up of two people, you know, to make this awesome little dynamic duo, and then just kind of building it out from there. Got a lot of great insights. So I'm so excited that you were here. I hope you had a good time, Sondra, being here today.
I did. Thanks for having me. I'm really grateful, Kristie. It was a pleasure talking about my experiences. I think of them fondly. And so I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will hope to see you next time.
All right, I don't know about you, but I definitely learned a thing or three from Sondra today. Because when you open up your eyes to all the pieces that you have in front of you, you can build that high-performing team that wants to achieve those goals. And she also broke the stigma that you have to have the answers 100% of the time. That's not true. You just need to know where to find the answers. What a relief, right? But what was your aha moment? And more importantly, what action item are you going to work on to help you bring out the best in people and create that high-performing team that delivers? Let me know in the comments below, and if you love these leadership tips today, give this video a thumbs up. If you loved what you saw today and you want more, you got it. Just hit the subscribe button and the bell icon below, and you'll be the first to know when a new leadership adventure is posted every week. And if you know someone who would love these leadership tips, success strategies, and motivational stories, well, just hit the share button below and share it with them. They may just thank you for it. Thanks for tuning in to Kristie TV, and keep bringing out the best in your team.